Welcome back to Matter of Facts Podcast. Phil and Nick are back behind the mic. Andrew's not with us tonight. Andrew's going to be on a vacation for a while because he misunderstood the topic when we started talking about the Militia Act, and I understand he wandered onto a local National Guard base and asked to borrow a tank. So I have been out of the National Guard for a very, very long time, but I'm pretty sure that's still frowned upon pretty heavily, and I don't think he's going to be joining us anytime soon.
Generally speaking, unless you are currently portraying OPT4, absconding with military equipment is frowned upon.
Yes, and if you are portraying OPT4, you don't ask to borrow a tank. You do hood rat things and you steal tanks.
Or in my grandfather's case, a bunch of 30 caliber machine guns.
I'm pretty sure he also stole a tank. You just didn't hear that part of the story.
I know there was a truck that was also absconded with, but not a tank so far that I've heard. Though he has gotten a little more liberal with his stories in his later years.
So what I'm hearing is ply him with some moonshine and maybe you'll get the full gear list of what he ran off with.
I would imagine it was extensive and heavy if he needed the truck.
Yes. Anyway, welcome back to Matter of Facts Podcast, the show that is 100% patron funded because this show has bills and bills get paid by sociopaths, and those sociopaths are not only me. True. So to all the knuckleheads who count yourself amongst our patrons and actually think the show is worth a buck, I appreciate y'all. Nick appreciates y'all. It lets us keep coming back to do this kind of nonsense every week. And It keeps it from being a line item in the Rabalais family budget, which means more to me than I can tell. And if you'd like to support the show and a small business and a little girl who just started her first day of school, I understand.
Ooh, that's exciting.
You can purchase merch at the Southern Gals, and that link is also in the show description. That's your shirts, your hats, your koozies. I think last time I looked, and we probably need to take another look at the merch because I have a running list of things that you and I said, oh, we should put that on a shirt. And I just haven't gotten to the point of sending designs to them yet. But there's also Cypress Survivalist, and we have actually... I promise one day I'll be better about being prepared for the show. Probably not, though, because too much professionalism ruins the whole thing.
We don't want to over-professionalize it. This is an enjoyable hobby for us.
So, November the 14th and the 15th, Cypress Survivalist is doing their next event. It's going to be a camping trip out at Bogo State Park in South Louisiana. And this is kind of going to be similar to the Matter of Facts patron trip in the fact that I'm not buying your campsites. You have to kind of rummage a brung and make your own arrangements. But if you'd like to come out and meet us, best thing I can tell you is to come find Cypress Survivalist. Either the website's linked down in the show description, so you can go to us. You can get to us from there. You can send us a message. We'll let you know exactly where we'll be on the campsite if you would like to come and visit. And we're debating on doing some classes or something. It just kind of depends on what the vibe is. I am not averse at all to, doing a variety of things out there, or we can all just sit around and, have a drink and a cigar and BS and get to know each other. I'm kind of okay either way. Although I have been grilled pretty extensively by Stuart about how we must teach classes every time.
I'm with Stuart on this one. I don't think it should be all classes because there's a lot to be gained from just the palling around a fire with everybody. It's just making the connections with people in your environment to me is the key behind what you guys are doing. And yeah, the classes are great. And I think you should do a class, maybe a class a day, something short, something that you can go in a little more depth than you did in the intro thing that you did, or say hey, you guys might want to think about this class. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, one way or the other. The thing of it is that between the four of us that are all board members, we each have our area of expertise, and we've had multiple people ask for Gillian to take her herbalism and her nature class and expand that further, because
that'd be great.
You and I both know there's no end to the things you can harvest from nature. There's no end to it.
We just found out recently you can eat the bulrushes that are growing in my backyard. They taste like carrots, man.
What's a bulrush?
I'll take a picture and send it to you. It's like a cattail. It's a certain variety of cattail.
Why didn't you just say it was a cattail?
Because it didn't come to mind immediately.
Oh, I was
My
about
brain's not firing on all the cylinders. I had to stop caffeinating at about 4 o'clock because I ran out of coffee.
wait. Stop the show. Stop the show. You what?
Well, the pot's empty upstairs. That's
That can be
what
remedied.
happened. I know, but I get
But-
yelled at if I make more coffee after 4
By who?
by my wife.
Doesn't your wife know that the application of coffee leads immediately to happiness and away from homicide?
It does. It does. You know, she's always telling me I need to not end up in prison
Then that means
So-
you need coffee.
at all hours of the day, in my opinion. We'll find out. I mean, maybe this will convince her.
Yeah, I mean, I stopped drinking coffee at 3 points in my life. About an
Mhm.
hour before bed,
Yep.
immediately before I'm about to have my blood pressure taken, and
Only
I
because
plan-
they won't let you bring the coffee into the room.
and I plan to stop drinking coffee about 5 seconds after I go to meet my maker.
That's fair.
I mean, that's fair.
You might as well finish the mug before you go.
Well, I plan on it.
Mhm.
So, the Militia Act. What is the
Mhm.
Militia Act? This came up recently, not just on the podcast, but I actually, and I'm kicking myself that I didn't take the moment to like write this down. But like I was watching some politicians and some newspaper reporters recently bantering back and forth about something about gun rights. I'm pretty sure it was about the big beautiful bill and the fact that the tax stamp fees got reduced to 0, and some people had big feelings about that. And this politician, to his credit, actually brought up the Militia Act in front of the media and was like extolling the fact that, you know, there is still a law in the books that says that people are legally required to have this, and this, and this. And
Many of you are out of compliance.
yeah. I leaned back in my chair. I was really, really shocked. I'm not used to hearing my words come out of politicians' mouths. I don't.
Yeah,
like.
usually they don't allow people like us to get elected.
Well, but you know, Nick, you've said before you feel like, you know, CERN fired up the Large Hadron Collider one too many times and spat us off into another timeline. And I'm starting to think there might be credence to that because this
They
is
keep
definitely
firing it off, and it keeps getting weirder.
This is definitely a 10 out of 10 weird timeline to grow up in.
It is. Man,
We got to deal with some chat. We got to deal with the chat before we move forward. So,
for sure.
Jeff Jag, good to see you again. Raggle Fraggle, good to see you too, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Someone named Rachel said Nick gets very squirrely if he drinks too much coffee.
I prefer to think of it as fun. I get more fun.
What is squirrely? Squirrely.
So I'll hit the point of caffeination where it stops minimizing what is probably undiagnosed ADHD and it starts making it worse.
That sounds entertaining. We should see that.
Oh, it's great. It's great. I love it. No one else can follow a single thing I'm talking about because I'm on 4 topics at once.
Have you
It's a
ever
bit-
had that moment in your life where like you say something and it makes complete sense in your head, but the look on the person's face you're trying to communicate to indicates that you said something in a foreign language?
Yes. It happens
Okay.
a lot.
I thought maybe that was just me with the undiagnosed autism spectrum, but apparently that's just a whole bunch of us poor neurodivergent SOBs.
So Jeff brings up generic cattails taste like a potato with a carrot texture. I thought it was almost the opposite. It was more of like a undercooked potato texture with a carrot taste. But that might just be the species that's in my yard.
This strikes me very much like everything tastes like chicken because chicken tastes like everything.
Yep. Or because, nobody could figure out what chicken's actually supposed to taste like.
Oh, the Matrix analogy again.
I'm just saying.
Well, all I'm saying is if a dude and a chick show up in tactical gear and black vinyl, like I am definitely willing to be unplugged. Just putting that out there. But anyway,
Yeah.
so the Militia Act of 1792, like,
Mhm.
in the name of full disclosure, for those that have watched the show for a long time, like we've talked about this before, this is not the first time, but I like to bring it up every now and then because it bears pointing out. I feel like it's very instructive because like there's still to this day this enormous, I think, dishonest argument about what the Second Amendment really means and really says.
There is.
But this is a lot more words, and it was inked it not long after the Second Amendment was ratified. So I kind of feel like if we have a law that's the tiniest little bit ambiguous by their measure, not mine, and then we have another one that says, thou shalt have rifle and ammunition in your house,
are required by law to own,
to shoot tyrants,
mm-hmm.
that might be a hint.
Yeah. And not just a firearm in your home, a serviceable musket for that, so not just like the 22 caliber of muskets, a service musket. They didn't want people being undergunned. And there was nothing in the Militia Act of 1792 that tells you, but you don't get to own a cannon. It was bare minimum is a rifle, cartridges, and a quarter pound of powder. But the recommended gear was higher than that.
And you're right. There was no upper limit at this point. Like, it was common for people to have private warships loaded with cannons just to cruise around the harbor.
In fact, private warships were the founding of the U.S. Navy.
Yes. And if it weren't, I love to point this out. Okay. Bear with me. Undiagnosed autism spectrum.
Go for it.
I have to add topics. We're going to do an episode where we are going to talk about the pirate Jean Lafitte and why New Orleans was not conquered by the British.
Sounds good.
Stash it away for another day. We're going to talk about
that's a great story.
We're going to talk about pirates throwing in with the fledgling Continental Congress. It is a phenomenal story.
Why? And because they hated the British.
Oh, no. It wasn't that Jean Lafitte hated the British. What he hated was being told what to do.
That's accurate.
And the mistake the British made was telling a pirate what to do. So the pirate said, okay, in a foot race between the Brits, who are determined to shut me down and stop me from selling stuff to people I want to sell to, and the colonists who kind of seem to want to tell them to go to hell sideways, I'm going to pick them.
Also, the colonists were laundering all of his stolen goods.
Yeah, I mean, bearing in mind that like most of our founding fathers were moonshiners and smugglers to begin with.
I think the best story about this that I've ever heard was all the silversmiths in like on the northeastern U.S. There were no silver mines anywhere in that area. All of that silver came from plundered ships that they were reforging and resmelting into other items that they could sell because they couldn't just sell the Spanish currency and jewelry.
So Raggle Fraggle is saying there's an excellent movie about that called The Buccaneer.
Ooh.
I start Charlton Heston as Andrew Jackson.
Okay.
I kind of want to watch that now.
That's a vibe.
I have to say, and then we have to get back to topic, but like my favorite story of the Battle of New Orleans is the one that no one will ever be able to confirm because it's so freaking outlandish. It's almost impossible, but it's so cool. The story won't die. But pirates are not always accurate retellers of their tales. You know what I'm saying?
Or the soberest witnesses.
Yeah. So supposedly there was a moment where a pirate frigate was shelling the British. And they somehow managed to slip past the pirates, and they sailed upstream and got out of cannon range of the larger pirate ship.
Sure.
The captain of this pirate ship was so angered by the fact that these British would not stand and fight, that they ran like cowards, that he dispatched several boats to the shore, drug anchor lines to the shore, and his men drug the ship upstream so they could re-engage the British from behind. Now,
that's great.
On the one hand, that is definitely a pirate move.
Oh, that's definitely a petty, vindictive move, and pirates are not exactly known for avoiding those.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I just think to myself, I'm like, there's no freaking way. But if anybody could pull it off, it'd be the Barataria pirates.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put it past a group of pirates to pull some shenanigans like that. I mean,
although that being said, Andrew Jackson did credit the Barataria pirates as the finest cannoneers of a generation.
Wow,
He said
that's a hell of a thing.
he actually said that they were like 2 or 3 to 1 more accurate at putting fire on targets than his
Shit.
own men, than his own cannoneers were.
That's pretty good.
What no one told them, what no one told Andrew Jackson was that the reason why the Barataria Pirates were so good is because they had spent literal, like, they'd spent years drilling cannonballs at known ranges. They knew exactly what powder charge would make that cannonball fly at what elevation. Like these guys,
Nice.
they literally, when they get bored, they just shoot cannonballs at stuff until they figured it out.
That sounds like modern F-class shooters. Like, we're just gonna place that target every 5 meters.
Yeah, but like I said,
will
like
know all my ballistics.
but that's how the Barataria Pirates figured it out. And like, to their credit, they were freaking amazing at putting fire on target.
That just goes to show you that enthusiasm makes a very good soldier.
Yes, or a very awful soldier and a very good cannoneer.
That's true.
Anyway, so the Militia Act of 1792, forgive me for the wording here, it is extraordinarily dated and of the times,
It
but
is.
all free, able-bodied white male citizens aged 18 to 45. Let's step back from those words, white and male, for just a second and accept the fact that this is a historical law that is more than 200 years old.
Yep.
But the crux of it is, that was the population of the, at the time, brand new United States of America that was considered to be of fighting age.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the crux here. All able-bodied people, everybody who wasn't infirm, missing a leg, missing an eyeball, or anything like that, anybody could stand and shoot a rifle and, march, was expected to have a list of military equipment that was the equivalent of what any soldier in any professional military in the world would have had at the time. A musket or a rifle, appropriate amount of ammunition, field gear, which meant...
Field gear is a big one.
Yeah. Field gear is the one thing that gets breezed over in this conversation a lot. Like, it wasn't just, I have my rifle and I have my, my cartridge box. It was also like, no, you have to be able to like live out of a tent in the woods for a period of time, because that's what soldiers do sometimes.
It's interesting because you see in a lot of the equipment list there that they actually omit a fairly decent amount of the field gear there, because in the common parlance, it was assumed that you were intelligent enough to bring some of this stuff with you.
Also worth pointing out,
I've got an image pulled from an old letter here we can go over.
Sure. I was going to say, also worth pointing out that this was a time when the country as a whole was much more sparse than it is now.
Yeah. Much more rural.
You did not go out into the woods without the things you needed to live in the woods for several days.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was like 10 and 12-year-old boys went out into the woods expecting to be out there by themselves for 12 to 14 hours.
Yeah, potentially for multiple days on hunting expeditions.
Yeah. Anyway, you said you want to pull that. There
so
we go.
This here, for our video viewers, is an excerpt from a letter to, I'm going to call it Shrimpton Hutchinson Esquire Sr. It says, you are hereby ordered and directed to complete yourself with arms and accoutrements by the 12th instant. Not sure what they mean by that. I'm guessing the 12th of the month. Upon failure thereof, you are liable to a fine of £3, and for every 6 days after, a fine of £6 agreeable to law. The following equipment is what they require him to have: a good firearm with a steel or iron ramrod and spring to retain the same, a worm, which is a way to pull a charge out of a musket, priming wire and brush, and a bayonet fitted to your gun, a scabbard and belt therefore, and a cutting sword or tomahawk or hatchet, a pouch containing a cartridge box that will hold 15 rounds of cartridges at minimum, 100 buckshot, a jackknife, and tow for wadding. Tow is a fabric made from, I think, flax or linen. 6 flints, 1 pound powder, 40 leaden balls fitted to your gun, a knapsack, blanket, and canteen or wooden bottle sufficient to hold 1 quart. So,
before we go any further, while you were reading that off, I was Googling.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to take a wild guess what a 3-pound fine was in 1791, converted to US dollars and adjusted for inflation?
I have no idea. I'm guessing it's in the
$25,000.
Oh shit!
$25,000 a day.
No, it's $25,000 for the 3-pound fine, and then every 6 days thereafter, a fine
60.
of 6 pounds. So
60.
first, 6 pounds
For every 60 days after a fine.
Oh,
of
60.
6
I'm
pounds.
sorry. Yeah, so $25,000 for the first one, and then for every 2 months thereafter that you are not properly armed, 50 grand.
That is not even full, dude. I mean, like,
that's not fucking around money.
That's not screwing around money. But okay, so let's think about that. Let's say like
that's a reasonable new car every 2 months in fines.
So okay, I don't have it in front of me, but now I'm definitely curious. What is the current like median household income?
I think it's around 48 or 50,000.
I was about to say, I want to say it's around 50 grand. So what you're telling me is that if you go 60 days without having proper arms,
more than a year's wages,
you're going to get you're going to get fined 150% of the median household income.
Yep.
That should like for the listeners that listen to all that freaking autistic nonsense. Thank you for sticking with me. But the point is, that should give you an indication of how deathly serious the Continental Congress was about, like, thou shalt go get guns.
Yeah. Get at least one immediately. Gotta say, recommending tomahawks, that's a vibe. I'm in with that. Yeah, tomahawks are fantastic.
It's still weird to me, though, that you even had to like put a gun to somebody's head figuratively to make them do this, though, because like this is a time period when if you lived on the frontier, you were just about obligated to have firearms just so you could survive.
Are you familiar with a hearth gun, Phil?
I'm familiar with the term. Isn't that like the grandpappy's old musket or rifle that sits above the hearth?
Right. And a lot of them were small caliber. And you know what they were used for most often?
Like squirrel shooting?
Yeah. If you were in the house doing house chores and you saw a game animal going by, which was anything on 4 legs, wings, fish, feather, whatever, you grab the loaded gun, pop the sucker. That's going in the pot tonight for dinner.
Raggle Fraggle sailing to our rescue. Annual income in 1776 was roughly 13 pounds. So
interesting. So
3 pounds and 6. So you even back then you're talking
9
about
that's the majority of your yearly income.
Yeah, that's brutal. Anyway.
Nice.
So like I said, like how do we keep derailing ourselves and then having to get ourselves back on topic?
Oh, because there's too many cool ways to derail on this.
That's true. That's true.
So there were some people that were exempted from this.
There were. So Congress was exempt, stagecoach drivers and ferry boatmen. And when in the very next minute, when we start fast forward to the 21st century, I'd like us to re-examine this list and figure out what our modern equivalency is. But, like the way I read this is that Congress is exempt. I don't know why, because they don't friggin' do much of anything anymore. But stagecoach drivers and ferry boatmen are necessary for transportation, which if you're trying to ferry a militia from one part of the country to another, you kind of need those
You don't want all your ferry operators to be in the militia.
You kind of need all those guys.
Work.
So like the way I read this is that like critical transportation logistics are exempt because we need you to do what you're doing, which is move people and things places. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that would have been, well, we can cover it when we get to the next part.
Yeah. But before we do, and I don't have a banner for this, but we need to talk about, I'm going to skip the Militia Act of, what was it? 1808, because it didn't change a lot, except
it refined some of the equipment to more modernized stuff was a lot of it. And it did exempt a few more people. I believe it was police officers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that and I think it was I think there was
Local government officials too.
I think there was one more Militia Act. I want to say it was 1865. It was one where like African Americans were specifically now included in the militia.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to say that was 1865. But the reason I'm lumping all those together is because none of those were a fundamental change to the idea, the spirit of the Militia Act, which was if you're an able-bodied male of fighting age, you better have stuff to do hood rat things if your community calls upon you to do hood rat things on their behalf. That was a baked-in societal expectation even before it was codified into law, but it was codified into law and given teeth in the way of fines because you're supposed to do these things.
Yeah.
Then we get around to 1903 and we kind of take the barrel of monkeys and flip it upside down and start shaking it with the Dick Act. Now, in the intervening time, there had been a couple instances where like the president of the moment called for a local militia and was told by the governor to go to hell.
Yep.
Happened a couple of times. Presidents do not traditionally take a they don't take very well to being told to go to hell.
True.
So eventually the Dick Act, the Militia Act of 1903 was passed, and this did a couple things. First of all, it apportioned federal funding for the National Guard, which is current to this day. With that came the understanding that if the president says, get your asses over here, they get their asses over there. This is where, like, I think it's Title 32 comes in.
Yeah, the federalization of the National Guard.
So for me and my fellow National Guardsmen who got orders to go to Iraq or orders to go to Afghanistan during GWAD, that's what happened, was that the federal government said, we're taking your National Guard assets, we're doing with it what we want. And from the moment those orders were cut, we were payrolled by the federal government. We got treated as big army, as active duty army, until we were released back to National Guard status with a DD-214 release from active duty, because that's literally what happens. They release you from active duty back to reserve status. But anyway, the other thing that happened, and this is the part that I really love to point out, like this is stump moment for me. This separated the militia as a concept into two separate chunks, because now there is the organized militia, which is the National Guards of all the various states, and there's the unorganized militia, which is everyone else. So if you are not in the National Guard, if you are not in the Army or the Army Reserves or any of the reserve or active duty components of any of the militaries, you are still considered to be a member of the unorganized militia.
If you are between the ages of 18 and 45.
It actually
able-bodied.
Year 17 and 45.
Oh, it's 17 and 45, so they dropped it a year. Interesting.
Yes. Now, please, no one jump up and ask me how on earth we're still debating whether or not 18, 19, and 20-year-olds can buy handguns in this country, even though the Militia Act of 1903
we are making progress on that.
17-year-olds are members of the militia.
is making progress on that.
Yes, I know. They are making progress. It's just, it's getting
one state
people
at a time, man. One state at a time.
It's just getting people to make laws that make sense.
Well, you're requiring people that want power over others to give up power that they think they have over others.
It's not necessarily that I'm wanting them to. I'm just kind of saying, like, for all of you out there in Normie land, how many more iterations of this nonsense are y'all going to have to go through before y'all start to realize that there are no good ones?
Nope.
They're all bad.
They're all terrible. It's just which terrible is somewhat in your best interest.
Yeah. But anyway, so 17 to 45, you are a member of the reserve militia. I'm reading the act on the other side of my screen to make sure I don't misquote it any worse, because Stuart will get me if I do. But so all of you out there between the ages of 17 and 45 who are male, you are members of the reserve militia. So if anybody ever says that you have to be in the militia to have firearms, you can just trot this out, really screw with their minds for a day.
Yep.
But so the reason I point all this out is because, like, this is a current through our legal tradition, where over and over and over, we as a nation have said the militia is a thing. You are all in the militia. Because you're all in the militia, you're all expected to be able to friggin' do hood rat things on behalf of your country. And I have to keep reminding people that over and over and over, so that the next time some idiot jumps up and down and starts screaming about civilians shouldn't have military-style assault weapons, you can pull this out of your back pocket and be like, actually, we are legally required to have
Technically, by you not, you are in violation of a federal law and subject to a fine of 3 to 6 pounds.
Yeah, unfortunately, violating federal law when certain political parties are in power is considered quite a trend.
It is.
Amongst a segment of our population. And when another political party is in power, this will never get brought up again.
Probably.
Can't imagine why.
No.
So the militia has been split in half. Everyone's a member of one or the other. Now, how do we modernize this? Because I don't think I'm going to recommend that anyone have, like a musket or a Kentucky long rifle and a box of 20 cartridges by their bedside in case the Chinese come a-calling.
I would give Eddie and 20 cartridges and a musket better odds than your average Chinese infantry squad.
Okay, but if ever you're going to pick a ringer for a musket loader, there's the one.
Well, for sure. I mean, he's a world-class marksman with that thing. And I do mean world-class.
You know that a friend of yours is in rare company when he comes home from a world competition and he doesn't place in the top 3 and he's disappointed by that.
Right.
I'd be chuffed to freaking bits that I actually got invited to go.
Right? Bro got invited to a world-class competition as a competitor. That says enough as it is.
Yes, we're going to have to get him back on the show for a couple of different topics that are in his wheelhouse. But, just to embarrass the crap out of Eddie a little bit. Like, he's won more muzzleloading competitions here in the U.S. than like any human being has a right to win.
Yes. Yeah, he absolutely has. He has won more. He's got more gold medals than I have like match wins.
Yeah.
That's just insane.
Now that we're done roasting Eddie.
Right.
So here's the question. Do we want to start with the official list or do we want to start with the personal list? I kind of feel like we start with the official list.
Yeah, let's start with the official list. I like that.
Let's rip that apart. So this is the TA50 gear list from benning.army.mil. Thank you, Google, for this one.
Love that.
This is everything a light infantryman is supposed to have, minus obviously a firearm. Like that's going to be an M16 or an M4. Like make peace with it. It's not on the list. But this is the thing we were talking about earlier where we said field gear gets overlooked a lot. This is literally clothing, field gear, your pack, your stuff. This is everything you're supposed to have except for an M4 and I was about to say a SIG, but like let's not go there this episode.
There's a new patent out that fixes it. I'm just saying, if somebody got a patent approved to fix the problem has to exist.
Yeah, that fixing the problem would have been don't get rid of the Beretta. And I hate to say that because
I'm not a huge fan of the Beretta, but it worked and it didn't just go off randomly hitting airmen.
I'm not gonna lie, like the whole time I was enlisted, I didn't really see the appeal in the Beretta, but here just recently that Beretta A300 has really ignited something in me, and I really kind of want a Beretta 93.
I mean, I am fully behind this.
I mean, I'm a sucker for a double action, single action hammer fire to begin with, and Jesus Christ, they're just pretty guns.
Plus, they duct tape to your back so nicely. I knew you'd appreciate that reference.
How many of our audience is too young to understand that reference?
None of them. It is the perfect Christmas movie, and I will stand by that.
Actually, I was looking at our YouTube metrics today. That I think like 25 or 30% of our audience is under the age of 35.
Good. Then they've seen that movie last Christmas.
Anyway, I thought that was a millennial thing.
Oh, it probably is. But I mean, do the Lord's work. Make everyone watch that video and Violent Night every Christmas.
That's fair. Anyway, TA50 gear list. We're gonna stop diverting ourselves off topic one day. I swear to God.
I refuse to allow that.
So let's, as soon as I stop screwing up
Good Lord.
with all of this, bear with
better.
me. Yeah. Anyway, so this ought to be all self-explanatory to anybody that spent any amount of time around anything pertaining to the military. But a large Molly rucksack is just a big old backpack to put your stuff in. Assault pack is a smaller pack meant to where if you're about to be going into contact, you drop your big backpack and you carry the smaller backpack with you. Wet weather bag, self-explanatory. 2 1-quart canteens, 2 1-quart canteen pouches, a canteen metal cup. Very, very useful for all sorts of things.
Oh yeah.
Sleeping mats, sleep system, poncho liner, poncho or tarpaulin, level 4 jackets. That's just your extreme cold weather stuff. That's your
Gore-Tex camo, basically.
Yeah, basically that's your cold weather layers for top and bottom. Army combat helmet, ballistic eye protection, fighting load carrier or tactical assault panel. This is like 2 generations newer than the stuff I got issued in Iraq, which was god awful. Bearing in mind, I deployed in 2004. I don't even think we had IOTV at that point. We had whatever the predecessor to that was. It was not nice. It wasn't fun.
Was it the... I have to look it up. I don't remember what the name of it is.
Had?
I remember it was horrible. Wasn't it like 1.5 inches thick?
Yeah, like you literally felt like Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, you looked like it too. Great
was
for a static defensive position, not for moving.
Yeah, wasn't a vibe.
No.
Anyway, and the worst part of it was that like at the time we were still using like Molly stuff, so we didn't even have the magazine pouches and everything that would attach directly to the vest. So we put on the vest and then we would put our Molly
vest over top. Yep.
No, not tack vest. Alice harnesses, like the Alice belt and the Y suspenders. We'd put that on top.
I mean, those are good as like lightweight gear, but on top of all the other crap.
Hey man, we were making it up as we went. It was 2004. For all of you that deployed in 06, 07, 08, you're welcome. We figured out a lot of that stuff didn't work before y'all got out there.
So just quick to respond to this in the comments. Guy that comments, China's about 2 billion people, so maybe 500 million fighting age men. We've got 300 million people, so 75 to 80 million men. Problem with that is China has no force projection capacity. You're going to see the same problem with China that you see with the war in Ukraine currently with Russia. Russia cannot force project reliably. China cannot force project reliably. They are a regional power at best.
Yeah, once you outstrip your supply lines, your offense is going to stop pretty quickly. And anybody that thinks you can cheat those laws, Google what happened in World War I. Yeah. That's why the German offensive turned into trench warfare, because they got about that far and their supply lines stopped stretching, and that's where they dug in.
That was the Germans' problem in World War II in Russia as well.
Yes. Yeah,
there's too much Russia. There is. Landmass wise, there's just a lot of it.
There's too much Russia.
Well,
I'm sure Ukraine is saying that right about now.
Oh, yes. But yeah, it's invading any large nation, you're going to have that problem of force projection. The U.S. is a very rare historical anomaly in its ability to force project from World War II on.
Yeah. But that's also why I don't think we're a good candidate for invasion, because you could make an argument that you can make a play for the big population centers.
You could,
but to actually secure the entire country, you're gonna have to police state the entire country from one end to the other and occupy it at a density that is just unrealistic.
Well, and so here's the biggest problem that you're going to run into, and it's a geographical one more than it is a violent population you have to deal with. First off, you have to go through a premier military on a coastal landing. Let's assume that you don't want to invade any other nations. for this instance. You have to do a coastal landing against a premier military. Then you have to fight through a mountain range on either coast. Pick one. Neither one of those are going to be great to fight through.
Or you have to try to come up through the Gulf Coast, which is going to be miles and miles and miles of swamp, which anybody that lives down here can tell you that is not for the weak or the faint of heart.
And say you're willing to invade one of the other countries. Great. Now you gave the premier military even more warning and probably a friendly compatriot that you are invading. Well, friendly in the case of some of the more southern countries, but they'd become awful friendly really quick if they were being invaded.
Yes, I'm pretty sure they'll give us full use of their airspace at the drop of the hat if it comes to that.
Absolutely.
Please come over here and bomb these bastards.
Right. Please get rid of all of them.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, it's
I diverted myself again. IOTV was not great, but it was already a generation newer than whatever they're talking about here that I've never even seen or heard of before. 2 magazine pouches. So back in my day, Sonny, magazine pouches held 3 magazines each. I'm pretty sure the modern ones only hold 2 each because combat loads have shrunk a bit. But this is a bit misleading because like every infantry guy I've ever talked to said, yeah, they carried 4 mags on their chest, but then they had like 4 to 8 more in their assault pack. So like it's not like these guys are running light. They just didn't carry as much out exposed.
Right, because really most of those mags, you're always fighting with a buddy. So there's always somebody that can get into your pack while you're wearing it to get your mags.
Yeah. All right. So 1 2-quart hydration system, Camelback, 1 improved outer tactical vest, IOTV with inserts and plates. So they're still using those god-awful things. 1 barracks bag, 1 tactical, protective pads, elbows, and knees. And then in the winter months, you also need undershirt drawers, shirt drawers, and a neck gaiter, which is just, standard issue cold weather gear. But the point remains. So what we're talking about with all this is you need to have everything you need to not only fight, but to literally like live in the woods. The only thing I don't see on here, which to me is kind of a conspicuous thing, because I distinctly remember when I was enlisted 25 years ago, y'all hold y'all's laughter. In addition to all this, you would also carry a shelter half. So like you would have literally a strip of canvas and a couple of ropes and some tent poles, and everyone carried the same thing, and 2 soldiers would buddy up together, and you each had a shelter half, which was half of a tent, and you'd button the 2 together and marry up your tent poles, and like, the 2 of you together would build a little bitty tent. And when I say little bitty, I mean it was like 6.5 feet long, so it was just barely big enough for you to squeeze your butt into. And it was just barely wide enough that if the 2 of you slept shoulder to shoulder and your other shoulder was poking up against the side of the tent, you'd fit in there side by side. For those of you who are really friendly, you could try sleeping one on top of the other, but that was not an approved method of sharing a tent.
Warmer in the winter, though.
Not approved, Nick. Not approved by the Army, not approved by me, not approved by anybody I knew. And if anybody approved it, they were keeping quiet about it because that was back in the don't ask, don't tell era.
Yes.
But anyway, so like that's the only thing I can see here that's like conspicuously absent, because I understand that the likelihood of you having to literally like stake out a piece of ground and sleep in the woods is fairly minimal these days. I did see in there a tarpaulin, so obviously in a pinch you would use that to like make yourself a little hasty hide to get out of the weather.
The standard issue poncho can be used for a survival shelter too, so these things can be accommodated for, but usually the way the U.S. military operates, and that's how they're building this kit for, is out of fixed positions and patrolling out. They're not sitting in a trench. They're not sitting in foxholes typically for long periods of time.
No, that's legit. And the other thing of it is that like, based on my limited experience, the likelihood of you having to literally like live in the woods for a period of time is fairly minimal. Like you're going to be in vehicles, or you're going to be pushing from one place to another. You're going to be going to a fob. You're going to be going to someplace that has a tent. The likelihood is not that you're going to be living in the woods. But the point is, this is your basic bare minimum field gear that everyone is expected to have. Now, for those of you out in listener land who count yourselves among the Second Amendment faithful, how many of y'all have field gear? How many of y'all have a chest rig or a plate carrier, or have knee pads, or have iPro, or have any of the things we've talked about here, so that you can literally like stand shoulder to shoulder with a modern soldier and may not have the same equipment, but you at least have an analog to cover down on all those things. Like trade the Jansport backpack for the big large Molly rucksack or whatever. But the point remains, like, how many of y'all have thought about, how do I carry my stuff to a fight? How do I exist in a forward area away from shelter for a period of time? Because that all factors in. That is all baked into the pie that was the Militia Act. It wasn't just thou shalt have guns. It was thou shalt have the equipment necessary to mirror a modern soldier of the time period.
Absolutely. You know, Ragel brings up a good point here. He says he has the stuff. It may not be good gear, but he has it. Now, there are levels of gear. And I'll be the first one to tell you, when I started getting into 3-gun shooting, pistol carbine shooting, pistol shooting, my gear was all 5.11 crap. It was all stuff that you could get cheap and dirty off the internet, because I didn't want to spend $1,400 on pouches, belts, plate carrier, plates, and all that if I didn't know I was going to stick with the sport. I've upgraded that stuff as it broke, and I still have some of that stuff. I mean, what I have for my mag pouches would probably be laughed off as airsoft grade. But they've survived this long. I mean, I've had the damn things for, 15 years now.
And see, I kind of bristle at the idea that
Condor, that was the one I started with. Thank you, Ragel.
Dude,
yes, I still have the Condor pouches.
I still have a Condor plate carrier. It is by no means the most comfortable. Listen, I am just sitting here waiting for Rebels Raiders to do that goddamn pre-order on the friggin' Vicarians. They're going to be dropping.
To spend my money.
They're going to be dropping one in M81 Woodland, and I want it. I pester him at least once a week about when pre-order, damn it.
He's probably got to get the container inside of the nation first before he can do the pre-order.
That's fair. Like I in the name of full disclosure, like I've never met the guy face to face. We interviewed him on the show a while ago,
Seems
and
like a good dude.
He seems like a good dude. I love what he's doing. That's why I don't want a discount code or free stuff. I just want to spend money with him because I love supporting cool guys who are trying to make good stuff at a good price.
It looks like a quality plate carrier from what I've seen of it. Without getting my hands on it, I can't tell you any more than that. He seems like he wants to put out a good product, and a person that cares about the craftsmanship of their product tends to make a better product.
Yeah, but like I was saying, like, I don't like the idea of like, it's not good gear. I'm going to tell you that 90% of people that have good gear, the shit looks like it came out of the plastic yesterday. It has no dirt or dust. It might have dust on it, but it has no dirt on it. It's never been used. It's never been run hard. It's never been used in anger. It's not even been trained with much. Like if you have put the not good gear on your body and run dry fire drills, you've already used it harder than 90% of people ever will.
Probably.
And
if you've used it at an IPSC or an IDPA match or a pistol carbine or a 3-gun match, you're ahead of the other probably 5 of those 10%.
And I'll also stand on business and say this. My first field gear, because when I tell y'all that when I first got into it, when I first dipped my toe in the preparedness world, I was the definition of shoestring budget. Like I just lost 25% of my income with a career change, had medical bills to pay for a hospital visit, to have a daughter born. Money was tight. I had a stupidly tight budget. It lived and died by like, $50 a month, whether I could put money in savings that month or not. It was tight, but we were out of debt. We just didn't have, we were kind of like pushing the needle as far as risk. But even then, as things started to loosen up a little bit, I had my money that was apportioned towards preparedness stuff. When it would finally build up enough, it'd get spent on something. But like my first gear, my first pistol belt was an old Alice belt. It
Nice.
freaking works. It's cheap, and you can get them at any armory surplus store in the country.
And it's hard to destroy those things.
My first chest rig was like the Chinese communist, the AK.
Well, you were an AK guy at the time, right?
I was an AK guy, and you know what?
Perfect.
If you take some spare wood you have lying around and you cut just perfectly sized spacers, you can stick M4 magazine. You can stick PMags in that AK chest rig. You just need to, like the AK chest, the AK magazine's a little bit taller, so you need a spacer so they don't slip all the way down the bottom. You can't get them out.
Mm-hmm.
And then with some creative sewing and adding of getting rid of the toggles and adding added Velcro and added some buckles and everything, I was able to kind of juice up that old chest rig to make it somewhat modernized. I took the grenade pouches and literally sewed one of them into a twin pistol mag pouch.
Nice.
Because I realized it was the perfect size, and there was enough fabric that if I ran a line of stitching right down the middle of it, it fit 2 pistol mags, and the other side is like a little bit tiny medical pouch. That's where a tourniquet and a couple of things go. But that was like some of my first gear. That Condor chest rig was my first. The Condor plate carrier was my first plate carrier because it was cheap, it worked, it got plenty of drills run on it, it got the crap beat out of it, and it's still holding. It still works. So nice. I would say that if you can check the box and say, I have something to do that, and you're willing to run it and work it, that is more important than having the Gucciest, most professional looking gear.
The only thing I would add to that is start with a quality belt first. Start with a quality belt first, because that's a good question by Jeff.
So here's the thing. SKS rig will work. Jeff Jag is wondering if his SKS rig will work for 5.56 on stripper clips.
I don't have any SKS stripper clips here to measure.
So
I have 5.56 stripper clips.
Yeah, I don't have SKS stripper clips either. I've got 5.56 stripper clips. My concern is you're not going to be using stripper clips to reload a magazine in field.
Californians are.
I'm not referring to California. I'm referring to America, but I digress. Yeah. Honestly, Jeff Jag, what you might want to do is figure out what the dimensions for a 20-round AR mag are. Ooh. Those might fit in a stripper in an SKS stripper clip rig pretty readily.
I think the SKS rig, it was 2 or 3 stripper clips stacked. So yes, I think you're right. That would probably fit.
Yeah. Now I'll be the first to admit that I don't have a lot of 20-round AR mags lying around, but I do keep a stack specifically for running 77 grain Sierra Match Kings with my hand load for my 18-inch rifle, because that rifle lives most of the time on a bipod, and a 30-round mag and a bipod don't always play nicely together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes sense.
20-round mags probably would fit in there fairly nice, but I would also say that same thing I did. If you can find one of those old, the 4-cell Chinese chest rigs, you need a spacer for the bottom of those that's about an inch thick, and you can cut them out of inch thick.
Why not just run a stitch down the bottom?
You could do that too.
Yeah. But yours, you were probably trying to keep able to do AR or AK.
That was the reason I went with spacers, just because I wanted the ability to hot swap back and forth. Because at the time I still have the AK, but now it's just a range toy. But at the time I wanted the ability to jump back into an AK if need be.
Try this on the Chicom rig, Phil. SE-TAC shotgun cards.
I can
see if they fit in that Chicom rig. They probably fit too.
I can tell you it'll fit because a PMag fits perfectly.
Yeah, and this fits perfectly in my old pouches, my old 30-round pouches.
Yeah. The chat is exploding.
Guy that comments was asking,
Jim
this is the one that started it. Want to know if anybody knew if used Kevlar or tires make good spall stoppers in case you need to improvise armor or improve like your steel plates, because spalling is an issue with steel plates. That's been known for a very long time. I do know that some people have used like Kevlar layering over top of the steel plates to catch that. Tires, fuck man, I don't know. I mean, Rangers use ground up tires to catch spalling, so I mean, with enough of it, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, the only problem is that it's not just whether it'll work, but it's how often it'll work. Because sometimes you get into a situation where like it'll work one time out of 10.
Yeah.
But like it's about can you control the medium enough to make it predictable?
The anti-spall rhino liner coatings are good for a round, sometimes two, which, if I'm getting shot less is better than more, so I'm going to try not to get shot. But
yeah,
sometimes you don't get that option. 3-round burst is a thing.
All right, one last thing we need to chuck in here.
Mm-hmm.
This was the thing I was kind of holding till the end because Nick and I were talking right before this started, and for those of you who are listening to audio, I'm sorry y'all are missing all the visuals, but you get to listen to our voice, so that's something. But this is an article by Sandbox with 2 X's, and it's talking about the small arms used by the Ukraine Foreign Legion. So kind of my pitch to Nick was, in terms of like modern conflicts, we kind of have to look at like the ones that have happened most recently, like in our lifetime. So to me, from my perspective, you're talking about Iraq, Afghanistan, because those are the wars that my country fought in very extensively. But I think you also have to consider Ukraine and Russia, if for no other reason than the fact that, like, since we're talking about the Militia Act, we're talking about an irregular group of people that are largely self-equipped who are combining forces to fight they're combining their forces to fight for the common defense. Regardless of how you feel about the war between Ukraine and Russia, you have to agree that like that is more to the spirit of what Ukraine is doing versus Russia. Russia being I mean, not even going to get into the politics of who's right, who's wrong, because
it's irrelevant to the discussion. I mean, what we're looking at is a large country attacking a smaller country. That smaller country does have less military. They just do. So they're more likely to take up irregulars. Russia's going to have a lot less irregulars, though I believe there are some irregulars sort of going along with the Russians. But, this reminds me of what we were talking about before we got on here. I see a lot of parallels between the Spanish Civil War, pre-World War II, and the Ukraine-Russia conflict. I think we really need to look very closely at what is going on with the Ukraine-Russia conflict, because drones, the U.S. did a lot of drone stuff in GWAT, but there was no peer that also had drones.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I really want to look more at the war between Russia and Ukraine, because I feel like the problem we have with trying to analyze like the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan too much is that these were not near peer nations.
Oh God, no, not even close.
I still to this day occasionally quote an infantry buddy of mine who to this day insists that if you're the only person in your area of operations with night vision, you are an angry god, because like he had night vision and his opponents did not, and the weight of that one piece of equipment made the fight so unfair it was ridiculous. But in this scenario, because of the extensive catalog of equipment the Russian military still had in storage and in stockpile, and the absolute flood of munitions and equipment getting brought in on Ukraine's side by various other nations, you are dealing with 2 near peer nations. The real difference here is there was a point at which you were dealing with professional military to professional military. That gave way once the majority of Ukraine's military had been taken out of the fight and replaced with conscripts. And now you're seeing, I feel like we're seeing Russia resort to some of the same thing because they've sent so many young men into the meat grinder.
Conscripts and foreign military aid from North Korea and a few other places.
Yeah. Still cracks me up that when the North Koreans got a hold of the internet, they had to have
their phones taken away.
Yes, apparently they got
repetitive stress injuries.
Apparently they got a little bit too excited with the sudden access to non-censored internet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, poor guys joined the 21st century all at once and just couldn't contain themselves.
Oopsies.
Whoopsies. So anyway, Ukraine's small arms. Now, in the name of full disclosure, even before I grabbed hold of this article, like I had heard some of this, so this wasn't really a surprise, but the list includes the FNC, which is not, I guess, your first thought of like what would they be swinging around in Ukraine for armaments. The Scar L, the CZ Bren, CZ VZ58, M4s, not a shock.
M4s makes sense.
Numerous AK variants, PKMs, M249 saws, FN mini-me's, M240 FN mag machine guns, CZ Scorpions, CZ P10Cs, which you were kind of surprised by for a brief moment, but you know.
I didn't really think about it. I suppose it's just not a pistol I hear a ton of, but that's probably a regional issue.
Well, and it's like I point out somebody fairly recently because they were confused. It was actually European. I talked to very briefly through the internet, and he was very confused about this whole CZs or hipster guns thing here in the U.S. To which I explained to him, I'm like, okay, there is kind of this pejorative, like tongue-in-cheek, concept of, because, for all these years, all the serious shooters in the U.S., they shot Glocks or maybe 1911s or revolvers.
MMPs.
And then you had these funny little weirdos who had these, CZs that nobody heard of because they weren't being sold in this country at the time. They were stuck on the other side of the Iron Curtain. And it was kind of it was the fancy gun. It was the gun that nobody could get. And the people that got a hold of them would just talk your ear off like an autistic knucklehead about them.
No, they're great pistols. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I had a 97B for a few years and I loved it, but I had to concentrate calibers down.
Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is like you acknowledge that reputation is somewhat deserved of
it is
the weirdo that brings the CZs to everything.
It is definitely, yeah. It's like the CrossFit guy.
But everywhere else in the world, CZs are a very common police and military firearm. Mm-hmm. A lot of police forces around the country, like literally the CZ. Oh, what is it? The PCR. It's the so the PCR is the compact size CZ based on the CZ75, but it's the compact size, so it's got the short barrel that mine has. But it's not a steel frame; it's an aluminum frame. But it's based on the 40 cals frame, so it's beefier than the steel frame 9mm was because they switched to aluminum, so they wanted some extra material in the frame, make it a little stronger. And it was double action only with a decocker because that was what all the European police forces were demanding.
That's a deliberate choice to make shooting less accurate.
Well, no. It's only double action on the first shot.
Oh, okay.
So the carry mode for that was half cock notch, round in the chamber.
Well, that makes sense.
So
that's understandable.
But the now PCR in Czech, don't ask me what it means, in Czech. All I know is it translates roughly to like police pistol.
Okay.
But anyway, that's the point is that CZs are very well represented by police forces and a couple of militaries overseas. So for me to see P10Cs and Scorpions in an Eastern European conflict
makes sense.
I mean, it would be like if a war broke out here in the on U.S. soil, what handguns would you see from one end of the country to the other? Glocks,
MMPs, Smith & Wessons,
Glocks, a lot of Glocks and a lot of MMPs. Why? Because there's 10 of them on every street corner already,
and a ton of dropped and half-loaded Kimbers.
Ooh,
Shots not fired because it jammed.
Not fired. So yeah, and honestly, like the rest of this is just not surprising. I mean, there's a, okay, so let's call it like the CZ Bren, the Scar Light, and the FNC are kind of like oddballs, but they all take Stanags.
Yeah, that's as long as you have magazine interchangeability within a squad, I really don't know that it super matters the platform that it's using.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that so there was a video that I watched a while ago that was talking about the small arms of the Ukraine conflict, and that was one of the things they pointed out, which in hindsight kind of makes a lot of sense. And since we're talking about modernizing the Militia Act, it bears pointing out here. But they said that because of the way arms were coming in, it wasn't like they said, hey, we need like 10 million M4s and 50 million, Stanags.
What do you got that takes Stanags and 5.56?
Yeah. Well, but not even that. It was really, at a lot of points in the Ukraine conflict, it was, what can we get? We don't care. We need arms. Right. So they would literally take a unit and they would equip that one unit with either the same firearms or at least firearms that took the same magazines. So you have M4 units out there in the Ukraine Foreign Legion. You have you have a CZ Bren unit. You have those units that within that unit, they all take the same magazines. They all use the same ammunition. And even though it complicates things from a logistics point of view, because now you have to supply ammunition for all those different cartridges, at least that one unit can take one kind of ammo.
Right.
And that's the secret sauce that makes it work is, okay, that is a Stanag unit. They need magazines. They need AR magazines, and they need 5.56. This is a Kalashnikov unit with a PKM embedded. They need 7.62x39. They need some belted. They need some in magazines. And you're able to push that ammunition out so the whole unit is shooting the same stuff. And that seems to be what's making it work. But as far as like their equipment, it really is a hodgepodge. Like within a unit, people pretty much have all the same stuff, but from one unit to another, it is very, very individual, which if we're talking about in the spirit of the Militia Act, we're talking about a modern interpretation of the militias, I feel like that's what you're going to be reduced to. Is your units are going to be composed of like local guys, hopefully that know each other. They're going to be somewhat similarly equipped, but there's no reason to think that the Mandeville Covington militia would be equipped similarly to the Chicago militia, for example. There's no reason to expect
switches
that.
in the Chicago militia.
Yeah. Anyway, a lot more urban utes.
What I was really surprised not to see in those lists were shotguns.
So
didn't see much mention of that, even though they are using them quite extensively for drones.
They are using them, but as I understand it, they're not considered like a common arm. It's being used, it's being deployed almost more
special
like
weapons.
Yeah, almost kind of more like the way that the US military deploys like M203s within a squad. Like, not everyone has a bloop 2 hanging underneath their M16. They have like
your load isn't heavy enough. Take this.
Yeah, but they have like one or two embedded in the unit, or they have there's a couple of guys that have some specialty equipment to do those kinds of things. Sure. And similarly to the way that we would have a unit that's doing direct action that has like a single guy with a breaching shotgun, they'll have a single guy or a couple of guys with shotguns loaded with birdshot. Yeah, but that's considered. That's considered an extra weapon system carried by a person for a specific thing, not a standard weapon to be carried by everyone or even everyone within a certain squad. Like, you're not going to carry just a shotgun.
Yeah.
You're going to have a shotgun and another thing that's more useful.
That's probably true. Although I would argue with that more useful.
More useful in the context of like
in a tactical small arms fight. Yeah, I get it.
Yes. I know where you're going. I totally understand the whole argument
get in a semi-confined environment and tell me shotguns are not effective.
Yes, but get in a wide open environment where everyone else on the battlefield has carbines and rifles, and shotguns just probably not the it. You remember what you and I were talking about earlier, where I said there's a difference between it works and best practices?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, if you're shooting buckshot at a squad of guys with M4s, I'm not saying it won't work, I'm saying best practices.
I hope you're real close.
Yeah, because if you're over like 200 yards, they're gonna eat your lunch.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and just on volume of fire alone, you're gonna have volume of aimed fire. You're gonna have better success with the rifles.
What are the odds Stewart argues with us about this?
Well, I don't think he can, because it's if it's
No,
buckshot. I mean, you can be accurate with slugs out to 100
Stewart
yards, but
can,
you do have an accuracy problem.
but point of order, Stewart can argue about paint drying.
And he probably would, just to prove me wrong, which is great.
Just to needle me.
Yeah.
Just to needle me. I'm telling you right now, the day he stops arguing with me, he's going to meet his maker.
Probably. He likes a good argument.
Yeah.
And he's usually got some pretty good ones.
That's the damned annoying part about him, is that he's usually got a... Yeah. Trust me, that is the second most annoying thing about him.
Yeah, he's smarter than most people I've ever met, and he's usually really convincing.
He is the smartest dumbass I know.
Right.
And the dumbest smartass.
They usually go hand in hand.
One day we're going to get him on this show, but he keeps blowing us off.
Well, he does have other obligations.
Yeah. Anyway, so do we have anything else to unpack here? Like the militia. Okay, so like to recap the modern Militia Act. If you don't have the appropriate things to do hood rat stuff, you will get fined $25,000. And then if you continue to act stupid, you're going to get fined $50,000 after 6 months of not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
2 months.
And
60 days.
Oh, 2 months. So after 3 months of not being able to do hood rat stuff because you don't have the equipment, you get fined 75 large.
Yep.
And in the intervening time, you were supposed to arm yourself with, let's say, a carbine that shoots 5.56 out of Stan eggs. That seems like a nice reasonable place to start. Like
I would say a semi-automatic intermediate caliber carbine.
Yeah,
is what I would say.
Let's make a small allowance, because the original Militia Act did say musket or rifle. So I'll go so far as to say, if you really are just dead set against the whole idea of like small caliber carbine, get yourself a 308 caliber battle rifle.
I would allow that. Yeah,
AR-10 or something, or like a Scar Heavy, something similar.
If you're in an Eastern Bloc country, make it some AK variant of the same thing.
Any of you who happen to be on the other side of the Atlantic or the Pacific, take everything I'm saying and convert it into AK, because that is the weapon system you're going to find a lot of.
Raggle, do you hate your ears?
He hates his ears and his eyeballs and the ears and eyeballs of everyone within 15 feet.
He's advocating for a sub 12-inch 308.
I mean, I'll allow it. We need our shock troops.
We do, and it will be shocking.
Yeah.
Flashbang with a projectile.
We also need to send him in as the door kicker.
Right.
One boot heel and 1 round. Scare the hell out of everyone and blind them and deafen them.
Right. Especially if you put one of those Landtac muzzle brakes on there. Ooh, buddy.
These people are unhinged. 45-70 Derringer.
They make a 45-70 revolver.
They also make bad decisions, and that's one of them.
They do.
And 6 pounds of shotgun sounds heavy, but not as heavy as 1 pound of C4 getting dropped on you.
Truth.
So anyway, rifle or battle rifle, 5.56 or 308. For those of you who are on the other side of the pond, probably look at a Kalashnikov.
Probably.
You need, at minimum, let's say, you need some method of carrying gear on your person, whether that's going to be a belt, whether that's going to be a chest rig, whether it's going to be a full-on plate carrier. Like, I'm willing to give ground on some of that.
I'm willing to give ground on plate carrier. I mean, look, you're not supposed to be the militia were not necessarily your frontline fighting troops. They were more often skirmishers.
Yes.
So light, fast, and self-sustaining is the way to go. And armor is heavy and expensive. It is.
Yep. And it makes you sweat a lot more.
It does. Even on a cold day or a cool day. Once it gets up to body temperature, it's just sweaty.
Yeah. So, way to carry your gear. Backpack. Backpack feels mandatory. You need a way to
Backpack is
carry your
mandatory.
stuff.
You have to be able to carry your bedroll. You have to be able to carry your rations, your spare ammo, any other your extra underpants, extra socks,
Food and water.
food and water.
What else in here feels like bare minimum?
You need some kind of cutting tool, in my opinion. Fixed blade or folding knife, but probably both fixed blade and a folding knife, because there are some jobs you just can't do with a big honking fixed blade as well as you can with a small, more nimble knife.
Do we want to push the issue towards a slightly autistic point and say you really should have a radio of the same type as the rest of your squad?
I would say, assuming you know who you're going to be working with,
Which
yes.
you should.
You should, if you can. I mean, otherwise, pick up the most general purpose radio you can.
I mean, a Baofeng UB5R.
It's hard to argue with, isn't it?
I can get one of those damn things to talk to, not legally, but in Minecraft. I can get one of those to talk to a GMRS radio, an FRS radio, another ham radio. With the right mods and a little bit of unlocking, you could do all sorts of hood rat things.
You can make a pair of them into a simple repeater. There's a lot you can do with those.
Yeah.
I would say that as important as communications are, most of your immediate communications are going to be visual or verbal within normal range. And cell phones are great for that. Great for out of that range anyway.
I'm going to say that there's a lot of people that are going to look at this and be like, really, Phil, if like we had to go fight the Chinese in our backyard, we'd be talking on cell phones. But like, you got to bear in mind that like, even back to like the American Civil War, which
they were coordinating via the post.
Well, not just that, but like you have to bear in mind that like there were whole segments of the country that were initially at least virtually unaffected by the war. So like you're going to have segments of an area where cell phones are still up, people are still going to work, grocery stores are still going to be open. So to totally ignore that seems like a misstep. I will just say, like, consider communications within your plan, because neither in 1903 nor in 1792 were radios much of a thing. So,
but they are now.
But what I'm saying is that when these militia acts were penned, there was no analog for me to point at and say, well, this should be a radio today, because it wasn't even thought of back then.
True.
The idea of individual squad level communications wasn't thought of. Like if you were going to communicate one militia to another, you do it via a telegram or a rider.
Right.
Which I guess is still an option.
I suppose it is. I mean, look, radios are great for middle distance and closer communications. They're also great for revealing exactly where you are against a technically sophisticated adversary.
Yeah.
So use them appropriately if you're going to use them.
You should get the Guerrilla's Guide to Baofeng radios. Because it tells you how to do hood rat stuff with ham radios.
Yep.
In Minecraft in Mexico, because none of it's legal in this country.
Well,
none of what's in that book is legal in this country currently. You can do about half of the intro, and then you are firmly at the point where Fuds and Elmers will lose their mind at you.
Yeah, that's accurate. That's fair. I mean, there's some of it. I would say the communications discipline is not illegal.
That is fair. That's fair.
Other than that, encrypting anything in any way on ham, GMRS, FMS, FRS, whatever it is, FRS is not okay. But Jeff's right. Spare socks and underwear, long-handled spork. More socks than you think.
Listen, to this day, everywhere I go, I pack twice as many socks and underwear as I believe I'm going to be there. Like, I have 2 pairs of socks and underwear for every day I intend to be away from home. You don't know misery until you can't change your socks.
Yep.
So
Nothing worse than taking off wet socks to put on wet socks.
So is there anything else to toss in here? Like, I don't feel like we left a lot of meat on the bone. Like, and it feels weird because normally we always miss something, but I don't. Feel like
and we probably have. But I think the biggest takeaway here is that what you brought up earlier. Who are you working with? Try to find some people around you and try to, if you don't have any gear at all yet, attempt to tailor your gear to mesh with them.
Yeah, and that is the one thing worth pointing out was that, like, at the time the original Militia Act was written, and certainly for a good period of time afterwards, it wasn't expected that you were going to buy this stuff and it was going to sit in the closet. Like, you were going to be training with your local militia.
Yep.
You were going to be training with your local militia. You were going to know who these people were, who you were going to stand online with if all hell broke loose. And they knew who you were because they wanted to know who to call in case something popped off. Like, we forget so much of our nation's history, or we write it off as these funny little anecdotes. But like Paul Revere riding through the dark to tell everybody the British was coming was for a freaking reason, because he rode through a town and said, get your asses up and get your friggin' muskets and get online.
Yep.
Because that's how it was done back then. And at the time the original Militia Act was penned, a writer would come into town and be like, get the militia together. And then I would go across the street to Nick and be like, hey, did you hear the do? We got to go and do hood rat stuff.
Yep.
And this militia, this little local militia in this little town, they trained together. They knew each other. They all had similar gear. They all worked well together. They had all
drilled pretty together. Good. They were all family.
Yeah. Family, or at least family friends.
Yep.
Like, my cousin married that person's cousin. We've been playing together in the woods since we were kids, kind of thing. So yeah, I would say that's the one thing that's not stated in here that should be part of this discussion, because it's the societal difference between 18th century and today, where we've become a very closed off private society where, like, we don't know our neighbors as well as we used to.
Yep.
And it's going to be necessary that if you want to follow the spirit of the Militia Act in modern times, you're going to have to figure out who are those people in my local community that I need to know, so that if we have to go do hood rat things, I know who I'm going to do hood rat things with.
Yeah. I mean, if something pops off in your neighborhood, do you have 2 or 3 people you could call, Phil?
Can you hear people shouting on the other side of my wall?
No.
It's girls. I don't think they're in danger. I'm pretty sure that they're excited about something, because that's the tone I was hearing.
Good.
Anyway, directional microphones are a beautiful thing, by the way. This microphone's pointed this way, and it's all the noise all coming from over there. But anyway, off the top of my head, I've got my infantry buddy. He's always good for doing hood rat stuff.
Mm-hmm. I'm talking in your immediate area.
Define immediate.
I would say,
like, within my town.
Couple of blocks.
No. Couple of blocks, I'm screwed. I'm on my own.
Okay.
I'm just being honest. I mean, dude, like, my street is completely composed of useless idiot Gen Zs and widows and divorcees.
My neighborhood is mostly comprised of people over the age of 65, with some of them as high as, like, I think 98. But there are 2 guys here that I could get a hold of.
See, Raggle, I know where Raggle Fraggle lives.
He's up for a run.
Well, he's one of my local boys. He's down here in kind of South Louisiana, but
nice.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem though, is that, like, within a couple of blocks, yeah, I'm screwed. I'm on my own. Within this town or this area,
which is a fair distance, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got a buddy who's probably 4 or 5 miles away. I could call. He's good for doing hood rat stuff.
Oh, that's a reasonable distance, especially if he's got access to a vehicle. That's not difficult for him to cross.
Yeah, and then there's my brother-in-law, my sister on the other side of town. They're good for hood rat stuff. I mean, I got a few people to call.
That's good.
Gen Z will sell you out to the Chinese for a vape bar.
Well,
thank you,
some
guy
of
in the
them.
comments. Well, if I start talking too much about Gen Z, I'm going to sound like the old man screaming at the sky.
Hey, man, people shit on millennials all the time, too. It's just their turn.
Yeah, but millennials largely deserved it.
Yeah, a lot of them did.
Gen X will sell you out for a pack of cigs. Jesus Christ.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, but if we don't shut this show down quick, he's gonna move on to dad leaving. Dad head's coming back any minute now from getting that gallon of milk. Like, it's coming.
Bro, that's why we use powdered milk. You don't have to go out for a gallon.
All right. Well, this has been the Militia Act, which, I don't know. It's one of those topics, like, I always feel weird when we bring it up again, because we do talk about this one every so often, but I feel like it bears pointing out again and again and again, because
it does.
People just don't seem to be getting the message. And to be fair, there's always that segment of the population that's just recently come into the podcast. And I feel like that's this, along with a couple of topics, are kind of like foundational to this podcast. And I feel like we need to harp on them every now and then.
And you know, it's always good to connect with the roots, like the roots of the country, the roots of, you know, modern 2A, the roots of the modern shooting sports. I mean, the modern shooting sports largely came out of the fact that guns were everywhere, so people started competing with them. That is a byproduct of the Militia Act.
Yeah, and I also feel like the Militia Act bears pointing out, because, like, I feel like it's, even though I don't think that there's an argument to be had about what the Second Amendment says. Y'all know that. Y'all know me. Y'all have heard me scream and yell loudly and repeatedly about it.
It's a fairly simple sentence.
But for the people who still want to argue about it and insist that it's not completely clear in what it's saying, a law that threatened to fine you 75% of a year's wages if you refuse to arm yourself seems like it kind of, drives the point home. So if you have to have an argument with some knucklehead about what the Second Amendment says, or even better, for one of our patrons to get a kick out of this, if you have to have an argument with a family member about why people need AR-15s, you should definitely point them back to the Militia Act and point out that there's a literal law in the books that says you are supposed to have military-grade firearms for the purposes of doing hood rat stuff.
Yep.
And if his head explodes, I just want a field report on it.
Good.
All right. Matter of fact, it's going to go out the door. We'll talk to y'all in another week. I don't know what we're going to talk about. We have a revolving list of topics that we kind of draw from, like a quiver of arrows. And if you would like anything thrown in there, you can reach out to us through YouTube, through Instagram, through mofpodcast.com. Or if you're a patron, you can just harass me on an hourly basis in Signal until I respond to you and say, Phil, talk about this or else.
Or tag Gillian in the chat so she bothers Phil.
Yeah, funny thing, Gillian has muted all Signal chats for a little bit because
that's fair.
It's the start of the school year, which means see, when you have a school-age child and a teacher in your household, this time of the year is like DEFCON 2.
That's fair.
I ordered pizza tonight because those girls came home and they were like, we are not doing anything more involved than taking our clothes off, bathing, and getting in bed. And
fair enough.
I was like, roger that, I'll order pizza. But anyway.
That's understandable. Pizza's good.
Pizza's amazing.
Except pizza tomorrow.
You should. All right. Matter of fact, it's going to go out the door. Bye, y'all. Keep in touch. Stay out of trouble. Get into trouble, and just make sure you get back out. Bye, y'all.
Good night.